subscribe, and then text me a question. 402-256-0768. It's right down there. I got the right corner this time. I never do that. Because I want to answer your questions. And I get a lot of questions, and I try and make my way through them. I mean, I'm be honest with you. Sometimes I'm playing catch up from a few days ago because it's hard to keep up with the volume of questions. But I do my best to answer them all. And if you ask me repeatedly and say, "Hey, jerk, why don't you answer?" then it will, I should put a notifications on if somebody calls me a jerk that I get the message. Even if it's the middle of the night, and my phone's not on do not disturb. Like they need to know their answer. So if I don't answer, it's not because I don't want to or care about your question. I just get a lot of questions and I try my best to get through them all. So we're going to hop right in and take care of some questions. I have a 5-year-old who struggles with impulse control and sometimes his anger. Any suggestions? If he doesn't get his way, he tends to throw a tantrum. I'm laughing because that's how it is at our house with our kids, just in general. And I know a lot of adults are this way too. If they don't get their way, they tend to throw a tantrum too. So I think that one thing that we as parents often struggle with is the idea that our children must be perfectly mannered at all times. And then when they're not, we're like, wow, we're terrible parents. They're terrible kids. Oftentimes it's the end of the day and it's been a rough day and everyone's been at school or busy or doing their thing and everybody's tired. And I know parents, myself included, are not always at our best in the evening hours, and yet we expect our kids to be at their best when they've been on all day at school, wearing masks, doing all their stuff, holding it together when their teacher tells them they got something wrong, and then they just like let go and let loose at home. And comment yes below if that resonates with you, that you feel like my kids are great at school, but they're terrible at home, and why aren't they better? Well, I talk with a lot of parents about that, and I can tell you that the vast, vast majority of the time, it's just that kids feel more comfortable and they're more willing to let things slide because you know that they love them, you love them, and you're not going to embarrass them, you're not going to shame them. Not that teachers or other kids at school would, but there's just not that same stigma of, like having a tantrum in the middle of seventh period as a second grader or whatever. You kind of develop a bad rep, so you hold it together. But then when you get home, you're really mean to the people around you because you know that they love you and they can handle it and they can take you. So 5-year-olds with impulse control and anger are very normal. I think a lot of parents worry that if my kid is like this, they're going to turn out bad, or they're going to have ADHD or anger problems. And I think the vast, vast, vast majority, actually, I don't think I know, the vast, vast, vast majority turn out great and are thriving members of society without anger problems. And the way that we help them get there from the place of impulse control and anger is to make their feel like their feelings are legitimate and help them feel understood and figure out how to work through their emotions. And a lot of us weren't taught well how to do this, and so it's difficult. Raise your hand or comment yes below if you feel like, gosh, I wish somebody had kind of helped me a little bit to have a better handle on my emotions as I was growing up, because things would be easier now, because I think most of us are that way. So what you can do is break that cycle and help your child to understand their feelings. When they've gone off the rails, when they're having a tantrum or throwing the remote control or punching the wall or whatever they're doing, be slow to react. You cannot be too slow. Even if you don't react at all and the next day you're like, hey, remember the other day when you were kind of really upset? That's totally fine. Be slow to react. Reacting quickly, you are out of control. You cannot do this. This is totally inappropriate. Doesn't help. And it just makes them feel like they should have a better control on things and they're a bad kid because their parents tell them they're out of control, or all those sorts of things that go through kids' heads too. Instead, be slow to react and tell them, I see how you're feeling. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree that like it's okay to have a tantrum because we had to turn Frozen 2 off. We can say, hey, I see that you are pretty upset. I can actually hear that you're pretty upset because you're yelling at me, and I can see it because you're thrashing around on the ground and punching pillows and all those sorts of things. It looks like you're upset. And then you'll get a yes. And even if you don't get an actual yes, they'll say, oh, yeah, actually, I am upset about those things and some other things too. It seems like it must be really hard for you right now. Yes. If you can get a couple yeses, that means you're on the way to them feeling understood, because people like to say yes. People's brains, adults like to say yes. If you watch Billy Mays in any of his commercials, it's, the what is it, OxyClean commercials. It was always to get people to say yes. Are your clothes getting dirty and not getting clean? Yeah. You know, any good commercial starts with getting people to say yes, internally or externally, to get them in the mood to hear more. And so you want to do that with your child. Wow, it looks like you're really upset. Are you upset? Yes. Well, obviously you're upset. I bet it's because you didn't get to pick out your shirt. I bet it's because you didn't get to choose the movie that we're going to watch, or we're not doing the thing that you wanted to do. Is that why you're upset? Yes. That must be really hard to not have control and get your way. So what you've done there is you've listened to what they've said, you've empathized with what they've said, you've acknowledged the problem. This is LEAP, L-E-A-P. This is a method that I teach parents. LEAP, L-E-A-P. And then, so listen, empathize, acknowledge the problem, propose a solution. Well, we could keep yelling and screaming, or maybe since it's time for us to go, like I said, you could pick the music in the car. How does that sound? Okay. Something like that. You don't expect them to just turn around and be perfectly pleasant and do the dishes for you, but you can slowly move in that direction by acknowledging how they're feeling and being slow to react and not trying to make them be good in that moment. You can't make somebody that's having a tantrum, child or adult, just turn and be good in that moment. Maybe they'll grit their teeth if they're really good at controlling themselves and bear it, but the vast majority, it's later down the road. You can say, hey, remember earlier today when it was time to go and you got really upset and kicked the wall? Yeah, I remember that. Was that a good idea? No. Why? Well, because I hurt my foot and it wasn't very nice and I yelled. Yeah. I bet you felt a little out of control then. Yeah. Next time, what could you do differently? I could tell you that I'm upset. That would be great. Slowly make progress in that direction. That's what we want to teach our children. We don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be good all the time. You don't have to turn things around on a dime, because adults can't do that either. When I'm upset, I don't just like flip a switch and I'm happy and everything like that, but I'm usually able to control it and work my way through it. And if we can model that for our child and help fill in the gaps of, here's where I see that you're missing some skills, then we can move towards having those skills so that things go better in the future. That would be my advice when you tell me impulse control, anger issues. Good luck. Following up on the eating question. My kids are 4 and 7 and incredibly picky eaters. Do we follow the same guidelines as the 12 to 24 month olds? So I think on a previous one that probably prompted this question, I had talked about how to avoid picky eaters and create unpicky eaters by offering them the food that you want to eat, and then if they throw the food on the ground or say no or refuse to eat, just put the plate away, get the plate back out. When they tell you they're hungry, give them the exact same plate of food again and again and again. And does this apply to 4 and 7-year-olds? To some extent, yes, but I think kids that are incredibly picky at that age take a little bit more work and a little bit more savviness. What I would say for 4 to 7-year-olds that are having trouble with being too picky eaters, and usually it's because, let's face it, parents just gave in and gave them chicken nuggets and peanut butter and jelly and grapes and mac and cheese and hot dogs and those sorts of things for too long, and we know that, and I talk to parents about that all the time, and they admit that that's the case. What can we do? We can try to help them by giving them some things they like and pairing that with things that they're not likely to try. So if your kid loves chicken nuggets, you can put a couple chicken nuggets on the plate, like not enough that they'll be full, but enough to get them going. And they'll get the plate of lasagna, and they'll see the salad, and they'll see the fruit, and then they'll see their chicken nuggets, and oh yes, at least I have chicken nuggets. And that will help them to start on a good note. Again, saying yes, chicken nuggets. Okay, I'm still hungry. I can eat some little bit of lasagna and kind of pick at this lettuce. And then what you do is you give some mild praise and recognition that they did that. Yes, I would love it if my kid just ate everything willy-nilly, but they don't. And so I'm going to affirm them even when I shouldn't feel like I have to. Hey, good job, you tried 3 bites. Hey, good job, you tried 1 bite. Oh, I know you don't love lasagna, right? Yes. But you tried it, and I'm proud of you. And here's a sticker. Here's another chicken nugget, something like that. You can pair foods that they like with foods that they don't like, get them to try new foods, and go from there. That's my advice. It takes a long time, though. It takes a long time to unpicky eater a child that's a picky eater, because Food is important. We eat a lot of times per day. So we develop those habits and we get those habits ingrained, and it takes a lot to undo those habits. To take a picky eater and make them an unpicky eater, it's not easy, but it is certainly possible. Oh, okay. This is a long message, and I think the text messages kind of came in a weird order. Um, my daughter will be turning 2 next month. We still struggle with her sleeping through the night. I don't expect her to, however. She will go to bed at 8 and wake up at 10, 11:30, 2, 5, and just want to be held. I never did the cried out method when she was younger. What suggestions do you have to get her to sleep better? She's a great eater, has water in her bed with her, wakes up dry. We have tried stuffed animals, but she just wants to be held. It's gotten to the point we put a full-size bed in her room, and one of them just lays with her. I would love for you to congratulate me on doing such a good job of reading that text message out of order. Because I'm just looking at it for the first time and I'm like, I don't think that's the right order. 2-year-old, we still struggle with sleeping her through the night. I don't expect her. However, she'll go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up. So it sounds like what we have is a 2-year-old that goes to bed at 8 o'clock, but a parent has to be in bed with her, and a parent just has to lay with her, which for a lot of families just does not work, because you got to get dishes done and pay bills and watch Netflix and relax and unwind, and having to lay down with a child that then wakes up throughout the night is just torture. I mean, it would be for me, and so I can understand why you want to change that. That's legitimate, and it's not being selfish to say, I'd like to be able to get something done in the evening and then get something done in the evening. A 2-year-old, what I would do is, and I talked through this in my Mighty Sleepers course, I got so many questions about big kids sleep that I actually expanded my Mighty Sleepers course to include big kids. So there's an infant section and a big kids section, and we talk about this. And this is really kind of step 0 of the camping technique that I talk about in Mighty Sleepers, because essentially right now what you're doing is you're laying in bed in the room with her until she falls asleep. So she's used to you cuddling in bed. What you're slowly going to do is just camp further and further away from the mountain, meaning that, okay, she sleeps when we lay in bed with her. Now she's going to sleep while I lay on the floor next to her. And then once she falls asleep, I leave the room. And now, hey, you know how you always fall asleep in bed when mommy's laying right here? I got to go do the dishes, so I'm going to lay with you until the clock says 8:15, and then I'm going to go downstairs, and you're going to stay up here and earn a sticker if you stay in bed. And you're slowly going to work your way back from laying in the room to the point where you just say night-night, or you lay down and cuddle for a moment, and then you get up while they're still asleep. It takes time to do that, but once they learn to do that, then they don't come and find you when they're waking up all night. They don't wake up and then need to be soothed back to sleep, because they learn, I can fall asleep on my own, I can stay asleep on my own. And those are just 2 things that she's lacking right now. It's not a problem. It's easier to correct when they're 2 than when they're 3. And so I would just work towards that, slowly moving away from sleeping in bed with her to the point where you've made it out of the room, and then you can work on making it out of the room while she's still awake. That's what I would do. Another sleep question. My 8.5-month-old used to sleep through the night, but for the past 6 weeks has been waking up to breastfeed 1 to 2 times per night. Is this considered a regression? I mean, it could be a regression. Used to sleep through the night, now wakes up. It's probably just a growth spurt or teething or something like that. There's no problem with what you're doing, which is breastfeeding 1 to 2 times per night. What I would do is just make sure that when you put the baby down, you put the baby down awake. She falls asleep on her own. If she wakes through the night, you can either just comfort her, say there, you can just ignore, or you can go in and feed and put down. And I would try and put down awake again each time that you feed overnight. But kids go through these growth spurts. That's totally normal and expected. And so they do have times where they wake up. It could be a tooth or something like that. Again, we talk about that in my Mighty Sleepers course, mightysleepers.com. And if you find that, we're waking up more frequently or having trouble going down, or it's 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and all of a sudden this previously good sleeper is waking up, it might just be that they're getting a tooth or something like that. Those are all things that you can work through. But the fact that they used to sleep through the night and then is waking up more now for the past 6 weeks is probably just kind of a growth spurt. Normal, nothing to worry about. Keep feeding if you like, not a big deal. Hi, Dr. B. We love you. We love you. We love following you. Thank you for all your helpful content. I was hoping you had some sleep advice for our struggles with our 2.5-year-old. She was always a great sleeper until about 3 weeks ago. She was still in her crib, will jump up and down at night, crying until one of her parents come in the room to calm her down. She then cannot go back to sleep on her own. She sleeps just fine alone during naps. We have camped out. Oh, that's from my Mighty Sleepers. Whoops. We have camped out and successfully made it into the hallway, and it seemed to be going really well. Then last night it seemed to start all over again, where she could not get calm until we were back in her room with her. She's been crying so loudly that she's waking up her baby brother in the next room. Appreciate your help. Thank you. Okay, couple things. I'm going to work my way back in discussing those things. One is the baby brother. I would put a noise machine, like a good noise machine, in both rooms, because it's totally normal for kids to cry, but for the vast majority of the time, they don't wake their siblings up. I talk with parents all the time about this and find that surprisingly, they don't wake their siblings up very much. So noise machine in everybody's room. If you opened up all the doors at our house, you would hear this really loud wave of noise, because our boys have a noise machine, our girls have a noise machine, our baby has a noise machine, we have a noise machine. So an open hallway, and like it's almost as loud as an airplane taking off or something. It's really loud when all those are going. Okay, and then 2.5-year-old, great sleeper, and now she's not doing it. I think she's probably just learned they'll cave in and do what I want them to do, which is lay with me or hold me or bring me into their bed, and they'll do it because they don't want me to wake my baby brother up. And I'm a little bit upset in general because I got this new baby brother that I really didn't have a say in bringing home, and he kind of takes up a lot of the attention and things like that. So I think I would just start over with the camping and start doing that again and expect that it will improve rather quickly, because she was a great sleeper before. Kids have these little setbacks and regressions, whatever you want to call them, and they're totally normal. It's more how the parents respond to them. So if you're responding in a way that's consistent, she'll see that that's the case and adjust to fit the consistency rather quickly. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. I would just keep going, try camping some more, and let me know if that doesn't work. Oops. Anything I can do to get 18-month-old to quit biting at daycare? Yes. Daycare usually actually takes care of this on their own. Kids get the bite reports and they get the bitten reports, and that's totally normal and expected. Daycares are usually pretty savvy. I mean, it's not like you can sit down and have a conversation with your 18-month-old about how they shouldn't bite when Timmy takes their toy 4 hours ago. Like, they just don't put those things together. So I wouldn't stress over it. Everybody bites, everybody gets bitten. It's totally normal. It's not a sign that you're the bad parent. Everybody bites, and I just hear that all the time. And you can stop kids from biting you at home by, when they bite you, go, oh, we don't bite, and then setting them down and withdrawing attention. I've talked about that on almost every single live that I've done in the past 2 weeks, because I keep getting asked about biting. I've also talked about it on my Raising Good Parents podcast as well, about biting. I think it was episode 3. But basically at daycare will take care of this. They will figure it out. Kids don't get kicked out of daycare for biting because they're 18 months old, and you can send them to the principal's office and they just, bite the principal. They don't care. So I wouldn't worry about that and expect, that will go away on its own. All right, guys, keep up the good work. If you have questions, text me. If this was helpful, comment yes below, because I want to know if this is worth your time and my time. I enjoy it, but hopefully it makes a difference for you. Keep up the good work and text me. Hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Keep up the good work.